Horrible time of year. It's nice out, but we know when it's nice out, we've lost our snow. It's hot. It's hard for us guys, you know, it's almost a depressing state. But there's one thing you have to do at this time of year. When the season's over, you got to summarize your sled. You have to make sure that this baby is going to be in top running condition for next season. If you don't do this, you can run into some problems. You can run into some corrosion issues. You can run into, you know, a belt that has a memory on it. You can run into some old fuel issues. You don't want that. The octane goes down. You're going to run into some issues, maybe some corrosion inside your cylinders, some dead old nasty fuel with ethanol inside your carburetors, maybe some springs that are a little bit, you lose the tension in them if you don't jack up the back end. So I'm going to go over everything that I do to my sleds when the season's done. Now I'm going to suggest to you that one of the things you do is you go into your owner's manual if you have one. If you've got an owner's manual, go in there. They're going to tell you what to do at the end of the season. They're going to come up with all kinds of recommendations. I'm going to tell you what I do along with those. Now one thing I do with everything, I use a Shelburne fuel stabilizer. It has the mixture where it's supposed to go into your tank. Some people drain all the fuel out of their tank. I leave the fuel in it. I just put a stabilizer in it. What this does is it creates a barrier between the air and the fuel, and it also has an ethanol neutralizer in it, which sort of kills that darn ethanol. Now you're going to want to put it in there and start your sled up. You're going to want to run it for a little while, make sure it gets into your carburetors, circulates through your system, and it's going to do its thing. Now some people use a fogging oil. Everybody's heard about it. You start your sled up, you take the air box off, and you start bogging this into the carburetor or carburetors until your engine more or less just sort of chokes itself on oil. Some people do that. I've never really done it. I have this can. I think I've had it for about, 10 years. I don't know why I don't do it. I just don't feel it's necessary. If you're in an environment where you have a bunch of moisture, it's probably a very good idea. You know, if you're storing your sled outside in, under a little cabane where it's some grass growing up around it, maybe that's a good thing to do. You can put a little bit of oil down the cylinders and just slowly pull it over with the plugs out, coat the inside of that. With something like an E-Tech, there is a procedure that you can do. It's in your manual where you basically do a setting with a couple of your switches on there, and it'll bog the whole engine with oil until it cuts right out, and it'll tell you, there, it's summarized. But when you're dealing with an older sled, carbureted like these Revs, maybe your old Bombies, maybe something back into the 60s, 70s, you can use the fuel stabilizer. You can put a little bit of oil down the cylinders, and that's a good start. So I'm not actually going to summarize this sled because I'm using this sled all summer. We're going to do some grass drags and whatnot. But you're going to want to just do this. You're going to want to take your belt off. Your belt will get a bit of a memory sitting on your pulleys, all right? So take your belt off, just put it in the back of your sled, put it in your shop laying on a table. Don't mush it all up. If you have a spare belt underneath the hood that you've got clamped in there, take that one out and just let it breathe, if you will. You want to go through and grease all your fittings on your sled. All the suspension joints, everything that has a grease fitting, you're going to want to hit it. If your steering has grease nipples, you're going to want to grease those up. All your ball joints, you're going to maybe want to put a bit of oil on those, just a drop. That's all it's going to take. If you're in a really salty environment, make sure you give it a good wash at the end of the year with some soap and water. Try to neutralize that salt. And then polish that aluminum up. If you like that look, you don't want that corrosion sitting on there. It's going to get worse and worse. Make sure you keep it covered. Don't leave it in the sun. Don't do that. It's not good. Now, as far as the suspension goes, get the back end up off the ground. You don't want your track sitting on the ground. It's going to rot it. You don't want to leave it on dirt. That's not a good thing. You want the tension taken off your springs, your torsion springs. You don't want them on there. You can take the adjuster blocks and back them off. And even the front, for that matter, you can raise up the front of your sled, keep it off the ground, take the pressure off the springs. If you have Fox shocks, you might want to take them in. The air shocks like what I have, you might want to put a little bit of oil in them. Maybe any high performance shock you have, you might want to send out to have rebuilt or looked at to make sure they're all up to running order. Now, if you're storing your sled in a garage or in a little hut outside, one good thing to do, take some dryer sheets, stuff them in all over your sled. Don't put it in the air intake because when you go to start it up in the fall, you might suck it in. But stick it in all around your machine. It'll keep those darn mice out. And take some steel wool, stuff it up inside the muffler. That's a good place to have it. It'll keep the mice from getting in there, because once they're in there, especially the old ones, it's a real tough thing to get them out. I've had sleds where I've started them up and there's acorns and nuts and all kinds of things flying out of there, and for about 2 weeks I'm smelling burning stuff. I don't even know what it is. So you're going to want to do that. You know, while you have your sled up, it's a good time to check for things that might need a little bit of maintenance. Make a list. Go through your suspension. Make sure the idler wheels are good. Make sure the slides are good. Make sure your runners are in good condition. If not, make a list. You know what you're going to have to do in the fall. It's what I do. It's the way to do it. If you have oil injection on your sled, I suggest doing this. Take a marker and just mark the level on your bottle. Just a little tick. And you can do that on your coolant bottle as well. In the fall, take a look and see if they've gone down. Sometimes the oil will just leak right on through your sled. Things will leak out. This way you'll know if things have gone down, if you're going to run into an issue. You don't want to hydrolock your sled, right? And just take a good general look at your sled. Make sure all your exhaust springs are on there. I mean, this is like a post-flight trip, if you will, getting ready for next season. Check your exhaust springs, take a look, check your carburetor boots, make sure they're all good. It's just a good time to get ready for next season. It's going to give you a bit of a heads up. It's going to give you a bit of an advantage for the fall when you're going to get your sled ready. So you're going to want to know what it is you're going to need. And that's just about it, guys. Very easy to do. A lot of people have been asking me what I do with my sleds. Like, I've done all kinds of things. I know years ago, I used to just start my sled up every week or two. That's all it really needed. But with the fuel we have now, you need that stabilizer. You need something with an ethanol neutralizer in it. But it's not a bad idea to start up your sled as well, because you know what? You gotta love the sound of that brap. Thanks for watching. Make sure you come join me on Facebook. I've got some cool giveaways coming up, and I've got snowmobileweekly.com. You're not gonna wanna miss that, where I give you snowmobile news every Friday. And this is the cool part, I've got my new forum coming up this week. You're going to want to join me on the forum for all kinds of cool tips. You're going to get to talk to manufacturers, direct lines with them. It's going to be really neat. So I got to thank you guys for coming back as usual.
Make it impossible to find me. Go on and believe it's nothing at all. Aren't you sick of promises that I broke?